Hello, everyone. We wanted to share a summary from our first ever learning round, a new event we have here at PTHR, which speaks to our commitment to having learning as work and very much draws inspiration from having a learning organisation. So, what is a learning round? A learning round is a space for us to share as a team insight and foresight, looking at emerging themes. And for our learning round pilot, the theme emerged from my lovely colleague Hannah Rogers looking at viable systems models. So, Hannah, in a nutshell, what is the viable systems model that you brought to the fore today? In a nutshell.
So, so I'm laughing because it is a very complex methodology. So I will try my best to put it into a nutshell. So, viable systems model is a methodology that was developed by a guy called Stafford Beer in the late 1970s, and it's a system thinking methodology. And it's a way of understanding how organizations stay alive and how they adapt in complex and changing environments. So viable here means being able to self-regulate, being able to respond to complexity, and being able to evolve. And the model is made up of five interacting systems within the framing of three primary domains, which are environment, operations, and management, or another term is a meta system. And what's really interesting about the VSM is that it's a model of functions as opposed to people or job titles. So it's based on the philosophy of autonomy and distributed leadership rather than command and control. So in a lot of ways, Beer's work and the methodology was much ahead of its time, really. So it looks at, as I said, it looks at functions rather than roles and rather than job titles. And it's really just the five systems that are in place look at your operations, coordination, control and regulation, audit and learning, kind of future and strategy, and then purpose and identity. So all of the things that you would expect to have in an organization, but looking at the synergy and the alignment between them. In a nutshell,
And that
that is
was in
what
a
it is.
nutshell, because during the learning round, I think your descriptor lasted about 25 minutes,
Yes.
and that felt quite succinct for how complex it is. But thank you so much for summing that up. And I think why we wanted to bring this to the table is because we're in a more complex world than ever. And part
Mhm.
of the learning round was also looking back through the history of PTHR and how we've come to be through the evolutions, the version control, if you like, and also defining four eras that we've perhaps had. So I felt like quite a lot of the conversation and questioning and probing in the diagnostic that you shared was around sense making. And I think a term that you used was the algedonic signals.
Yep, that's it.
Can you explain a bit more what that really means?
Yeah, so within those signals are very much related to the communication channels that happen within a viable system. So you have them going between some of the systems. So system one, in terms of your operations, will go into coordination, and but the aldogenic signals are like your kind of your pain and pleasure receptors. So they're there to be able to bypass system, so you don't have to follow it in this kind of hierarchical order. But if something is going really well, or there is a risk that's happening, say within the operations, there's the ability to then be able to talk and to communicate and interact with all of the other functions. So bearing in mind that it's about challenging some of the traditional hierarchy that happens within organizations, and the basis that viable systems and the operations within them should be as autonomous as possible, it means that you're not having to wait for quite bureaucratic leadership and decision making and governance processes, but actually that you're able to say, this is something that I need to alert, and this is what I'm doing in order to be able to move it forward. So it's essentially a kind of a communication channel that exists within viable systems.
Sure, no, I really like that. It really spoke to me. And I think even though with the VSM, it showed us that we're quite mature in our self-managed system and picking up on these signals, there's still work that we can do and tweaks that we can
Mhm.
make. And I know following this learning round, that's something that we're now going to
Yeah.
do. I wanted to just conclude by sharing something that you said. The complexity of the system needs to meet the complexity of the world it operates in.
Mm.
And that's why now with AI, climate crisis, well, poly crisis, everything around us, this is a really valuable lens to look at PTHR through. So thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us.
Pleasure.